Hey all, this is Tim. I'm back, and Megan is joining me as well. I'm going to go ahead. It's a relatively small group that's joined. I'm going to go ahead and invite you all to share your audio and video. It should be manageable. That way we can have a little bit of direct interaction. I'll give you all maybe 30 seconds to do that. Don't be shy. It's going to be a really small thumbnail on our screen, so we'll barely be able to see you. It's okay if you're in your PJs or whatnot. All right, so this session is going to be much less formal. Not that the first one was formal, but pretty informal. Um, we have the slide up there. We're not going to go through a slide deck, but just to kind of come back around to students in the environmental health sciences, Master of Public Health, really have some great freedom. So you can come in and basically work with your advisor to help design a course curriculum that most specifically is suiting your interests and your passions. So there's not so much freedom on the breadth requirements at the school level, right? So everyone needs to take those: epidemiology, biostatistics, health management policy, nutritional sciences, have that foundation at the school level. You also are required to take our EHS core courses. So the exposure science and health, the essentials of toxicology, the occupational and environmental medicine, and so forth. That gives you that strong foundation in environmental health sciences. Beyond that, within the program, it's you working with your advisor to help come up with the plan that best suits your interests. Megan, for example, is following a path of courses that are oriented around environmental quality, sustainability, and health. So she's taking courses that are focused on community air pollution, water quality management, environmental chemistry, and so forth. We have the slide up again just as a reminder of how many different directions you might be able to go. And, we didn't talk about it this morning, but the courses that you take here, you are not in any way restricted to environmental health sciences or even the School of Public Health. Our students, and we encourage them, take classes in the School for Environment and Sustainability. They take classes on environmental law in the School of Public Policy. They take classes in civil and environmental engineering. So you're not at all limited to course offerings within our department or within our school. You're in fact encouraged. And it's one of the great things. The topic expertise here at the university covers anything and everything you could come up with. So I wanted to go ahead and just kind of open it up to questions about anything that you heard this morning or things that weren't covered. Please go ahead and just speak up and ask.
I guess I'm a little curious. I'm interested a lot, obviously, in environmental health sciences, and I know that epidemiology used to be kind of like environmental epidemiology used to be kind of part of EHS. So I was curious kind of how those intertwine, especially now that they're almost like separated from each other a little more. Just kind of curious about that whole thing.
Yeah. So whatever separation you might perceive is
Mm,
completely administratively.
mm,
Um, in reality, it's very closely tied together.
mhm,
Whether you look at it from a curriculum perspective
mhm.
or from a research or application perspective.
Okay.
We even have faculty that are jointly appointed in both departments.
Mhm,
Marie O'Neill, for example, is jointly appointed in both environmental health sciences as well as our department of epidemiology.
mhm,
There is a specific program on occupational and environmental epidemiology.
mhm.
So you can come formally into that program. You can come less formally into environmental health sciences and still design your coursework, your curriculum, your activities, things that you're involved in that meet those interests and train you to go on in that field if that's your choice.
Sure, because I've talked to a few people about like, oh, what if I try to kind of simultaneously study EHS and EPID kind of next to each other, but they're only going to be for, the MPH degree, and that's a lot of work. So they were suggesting like kind of catering my coursework to, my interests more so. So I was curious like
Yeah.
how close they were related. So, mhm.
Yeah, and I would agree with that advisement that you received. It's really easy to customize it so that it's
Mhm.
suiting your interests. It's not a formal process at all.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions that folks might have? And it can be about anything. It can be about Ann Arbor. It can be about this program. It can be questions for Megan. You name it.
Guess I'll ask another one.
Go
Um,
for it.
so, I guess I'm curious because you guys have, the list of different things you can look into regarding EHS on the screen right now. Do you have many people that look into like vector-borne issues, or is that primarily looked into, are these things on the screen more primarily what you guys look into?
No, these are just examples, almost as talk points. There's so much
Mm.
more that's not on that slide. That was just kind of something to look at while we were chatting.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think one of the really common overlaps, and it was like I think it was Professor G that mentioned
Hmm.
in the research discussion about
Hmm.
how students end up being the bridge, right, between some of these what might be looked at as like different siloed topic areas that you come in and you say, I'm interested in studying vector-borne disease.
Hmm.
How can I pursue this, both
Hmm.
curriculum-wise in terms of my coursework, but then also other activities, projects, other things that you might become involved in. So, right, it's working to identify who are the best faculty to help meet those interests.
Hmm.
They may be faculty that are here in environmental health sciences. They
Hmm.
might be faculty that are elsewhere in our school. There
Sure.
may be faculty in other schools and colleges across the campus.
Hmm.
So it might be a really cool class in civil and environmental engineering because there's somebody there who's working on and teaching a class on how to address this very specifically.
Hmm.
Um, so again, I would, and I know you all come from different undergraduate experiences. I know that some of you felt like a fish in a sea in terms of your academic advising, right? And how to navigate that. I can absolutely assure you, if you walk away with nothing else, is that the interaction that you can expect while you're here is kind of like this. It's you sitting down with me or one of our other faculty and working through all of this so that we make sure that your interests and your career pursuits are being met and addressed and setting you up, to be successful.
Awesome.
There was one thing that came to mind that I didn't mention earlier in the session that is a common question, so I'll go ahead and give an answer even though nobody asked it. Um, and it's about the possibility of doctoral studies.
Mm.
So every year we have a few of our master's students, after like a year in the program, they've gotten maybe involved formally or informally in some sort of research project. It's something they haven't been exposed to previously, and they say, wow, this is really cool. I think I might want to do a PhD. And so, for anyone who might ask that question, the answer is yes. You absolutely can pursue a PhD here, and it's such a common interest from master's students that we've designed the coursework so that a master's student here actually saves an entire year in the process by making that transition from master's degree to doctoral degree. For example, somebody who comes in here applies directly to our PhD program and starts. They spend their first year taking foundational level coursework and preparing for a doctoral qualifying exam. that they take at the end of their first year in the doctoral program. As a master's student, if you decided 1 year into your master's program, hey, I think I'd like to apply to the doctoral program and continue on with a PhD, as you approach your graduation date at the end of your second year in the program, you walk across the stage, you receive your diploma, we say, great job, you finish with your MS or your MPH, and 2 weeks later, you sit for that doctoral qualifying exam. So in reality, you've actually saved an entire year in that process. It's not additive, right? 2 years of master's degree and then X years of doctoral degree. You're saving a year in that doctoral process. So just in case that's something that even in the back of your mind that some of you might be considering, we know about these things and we try to make them as easy as possible.
So would we have to reapply into the doctoral program, or how is that application process?
Formally, yes. Formally, you would apply and go through the admissions process. But I can tell you that in most cases, it's a student that's in their master's time in the program has already established this great relationship with a faculty member working on their research projects, and it's like this natural fit, right? And they say, of course, will you please stay for a PhD? You would be great continuing to do this type of work. And so, yes, formally you would still apply and be admitted. But that's also an important step for students that apply to the doctoral program outside of the university. As part of the application and admission process is identifying who might be your research mentor. What are the types of projects that you could work on? What are the funding mechanisms that would support your doctoral studies? You would already know the answers to all of those questions basically as you're applying, because you've already had the relationship with a research mentor. It's basically been offered to you, hey, will you please consider staying on for a PhD? That type of thing. Excellent question.
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering, is it still possible to coordinate a visit to the campus and personally meet some of the professors and faculty and students physically at Ann Arbor? I'm just saying this because I've never been there and I want to be able to see the campus before I make a decision, which is due, I think, on April 15th, right?
So is it possible? Yes, absolutely. That would be your decision to make in terms of traveling. We all have we're all following the same kind of personal guidance, right, on limiting exposures and social distancing. And depending on your mode of travel, right, there are some important things. So we're worried about your safety, right? So we don't want you to put yourself at undue risk of exposure. But the answer is yes. You can come visit Ann Arbor. You would kind of coordinate the dates, who is available, make some appointments to meet with specific people, those types of things. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. These are great questions. Thank you so much. This is so much better than me having to try to fill the airtime with things that I hope you might want to know.
I guess I have another question, and that is, are all the courses housed within the School of Public Health?
Depending on the program, and it's basically up to you. So if your goal was somehow to not leave the building, yes, you could design a curriculum in terms of your focus area and your interests, and only take classes within the School of Public Health within this building. Megan is already interrupting me with some really, really good advice.
I would say don't do that. It's definitely beneficial to get out. Like, I've taken several classes within the school system, and that's just like another kind of networking opportunity just to collaborate with other students there. That has been really valuable, especially dealing with like the different perspectives of like environmental health and environmental sciences, and like just the difference in topics there has been really valuable for me, because I like didn't realize that that was as that the line was as that was there was a line there. I don't know. There's differences in communications.
Yeah, and I think you gain perspectives, right? So we started the session earlier today by saying one of the benefits of studying environmental health sciences within our School of Public Health is that it's all within this public health context, right? That's a huge benefit. But there are people that study similar issues about our environment that don't study it within a public health context. It's within a very different context. And so, like Megan was mentioning, the School for Environment and Sustainability, right? Sustainability doesn't necessarily need to have anything to do with health, but it still can be very important, right? So that's an example of an opportunity to take some courses, learn things that still fit very nicely into your interests, but you're learning it from a very different context.
Yeah. For example, right now I'm in a class, project management, and it's within the School of Sustainability. And like our big project is we have to evaluate different project choices and different choices in project management. And like the range of topics was really interesting, because there's several of us from public health. And so we wanted to focus on like urban housing and like urban slums and health effects and sustainability aspects to those. And then there's also this other group that's studying wildlife preservation. Like there's just quite a range, and how that and in the different ways that those programs are run has been a valuable experience.
Okay.
So there's your answer. Don't stay just in public health. You got to get some exposure outside of that public health context.
I've heard it's a beautiful campus, so definitely.
It's wonderful. Good question. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions that folks might have?
I guess I'm just kind of randomly curious about this. How much do you guys work with MDHHS?
So the answer is variable, and that's a pretty specific question. I'm going to broaden it a little bit to say state environment and health agencies, or even federal environment and health agencies, or even local, right, like county or city level. So there are some faculty that don't do that very much. So Professor Zellers, for example, his research is designing wireless microsystem sensors. So really small, like thumbnail chip type stuff, developing it like lab bench science on how to assess our exposures to different chemicals, right? Whether it's in the workplace, in our household, in the broader community. And so, yes, there's opportunities for him to interact within specific communities, but there's less of a direct application. There are other faculty whose research is very purposefully, it's interacting with communities as part of the research. So partnering with a state agency, a county agency, a federal agency, whatever it might be, so that by design, there is a translational piece to the project, an opportunity for direct feedback to participants, to a broader community audience, with those relationships already built in from scratch. And then if you're asking more from a service perspective, right, outside of research, like right now, our faculty engaged with, right, state level health agencies, yes, right, because that expertise is in-house. And so, you know, that's very much why we're here. We are a state university, and it's, it's expected, but it's nothing that anybody sees as a burden, right? It's an opportunity for us to contribute that expertise in, in very important and applied circumstances.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Good question. And very timely.
Yeah.
Any other questions folks might have? All right. Well, hey, I don't want to. Oh, you had one?
I do have one more question.
Go for it.
So I know in the previous session we kind of touched upon like career outcomes coming out of the program with like 1/3 going into academia, 1/3 into industry. But I was wondering if you'd kind of break down some of the specifics on like what careers that recent graduates have gone into.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask, do you have the access to the slide deck? Can you shuffle through them to pull up a particular slide?
I can, if you don't mind. Well, I'll stop sharing and I'll bring it back up.
Yeah, there's one that has a bunch of like industry icons, like companies and universities and things like that. So yeah, so let's see. So a couple of things, and these are worth noting. I think we describe the difference between our MS degree and our MPH degree as one being very kind of science driven and one being mostly professional oriented. I'm going to back up and clarify that those boundaries are easily crossed. So that we have MS students that go in very applied practice careers. We also have MPH graduates that go on to utilize research as part of their work, as part of their career. So that's one thing to kind of clarify up front. So your degree program doesn't really bottle you into one type of career option versus another. And I think the doctoral program example is a great example, right? Whether you're doing an MPH or an MS, you're still prepared to apply to and start a doctoral program, right? Which is entirely research-based. So we have graduates that go into large multinational corporations. A lot of them, that's it, that's perfect. So thank you. So we have a slide up that shows, there's some icons up there of some of the examples of where folks have gone on to work. It's not by any means comprehensive, it's just some examples. A lot of our industrial hygiene students actually end up going into big industries. That's where, and from a workplace perspective, that's where most of the exposure and safety risks come into play, are within those workplaces. So having that degree training is very much needed in the large industrial framework of the workplace. Students like Megan, for example, that are coming through with the environmental quality, sustainability, and health, type focus, a lot of those go into federal government agencies. A lot of those students are at US EPA, some at FDA, some at CDC. Some are working in nonprofit organizations, the Environmental Defense Fund, Sierra Club. Some are working within academia as project managers, right? As part of a research project or even a practice-based project. Some are involved at a much smaller level, smaller scale, like a small environmental consulting firm. So a lot of, we have students at, say, our state level agency here in Michigan or any other state. And then there are industries that need to obtain permits, right, for their activities because it has some impact on the environment. Most of those companies don't actually have in-house experience on how to apply for a permit. So they contract with someone who has that expertise to help them through that permit process. So those types of consulting firms, some of our students go into that type of work and help bridge that process between the state level agency permitting requirements and individual companies that need to apply and have those permits approved. So, and you need to have an understanding of water quality management, air quality management, these types of things in order to know how to navigate that process. I'm trying to look at some of the different icons that are on the screen there, all over the place. Some of our toxicology students end up like in the pharmaceutical industry, right? Because they're very mechanistically oriented in terms of the different pathways of insult that happen within a body. Understanding that can also be used for drug development, right? Which is kind of part of intervention in public health. That's a long-winded answer to your question. Did I give enough info?
Yeah, no, that was a great overview. Thank you.
Okay, good, thanks. But definitely do not feel like you're limited, right? So we're not steering students into particular sectors. It's all based on interest. So students come in, actually some students come in and say, I want to do this. When I graduate, I want to go work here. And then after a year or so, and they've had some other experiences that inform that decision, and they completely change their mind and they say, yeah, I don't want to do that. I know for sure. It was based on some internship experience or whatever else that might be. But yeah, you're not limited. So it's really based on personal choice. And it just happens to be kind of randomly. It sorts out about 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 is where our students end up going. Some are going into the government agencies. Some are going into either larger or smaller industries or corporations, and then some are going into more of the nonprofit type organizations, including academic settings.
Great, thanks.
Of course. You guys have done a great job. I'm really impressed with how long you've hung with us and stayed engaged. This is fantastic. Any other questions coming to mind? All right. Well, hey, I don't want to keep you. Once we sign off, this will be the end of the whole session. There's not a follow-up breakout or anything else. So we'll be done for today. But like I mentioned earlier, in the larger group, it's not the end of your opportunity to ask questions. I'm personally happy to speak with any of you by phone, we can exchange emails if you want to, Skype or FaceTime, whatever it is. I'm happy to do that. I'm sure Megan would also be happy to answer questions.
You're welcome to email me. I don't know.
We can make information. Yeah. Sue Crawford has all of the information. So just reaching out to me or reaching out to Sue, we'll put you in contact with whatever you need to get a question answered or find out more. But please don't hesitate to do that. I want to make sure you all feel comfortable doing that. And again, the goal is to make sure that you have all that information on hand, right? So that you can make the most informed decision. These are important decisions. We want you to come, of course, but we honestly want you to end up, right, whatever is the best fit for you. Hopefully here at Michigan.